Yeah, yeah. Well, back in 2013, I wrote my first novel, and that was interesting because the thought process, I guess, just getting started. And I got about 90% through with that book before I even told my wife I was writing it because I thought maybe that was the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. And she read it, and she was just crying. And I said, well, is it that bad? And she said, no, it was that good. I had a writing career, writing magazines for the last 20 years, but I'd never written a novel until 2013. So that was published in 2014, and things just took off from there. I think I wrote the first series I wrote. It was Miracle at Collar Spring Ranch, and there was about 6 books in that. And then I moved to this Jubal Stone series, which is my current one. And there are 91 books in that right now. Yeah, well, a lot of that, I think the background of that came out of my upbringing around horses and cattle. I've just always loved that, to be around that. And so this book, the setting of it was Horse Creek, Wyoming. And I really just picked that off of a map. And then in 2014, when I wrote the first book in that series, I was in Wyoming. And another thing, my background, I've been a pastor for 37 years. I just retired from that last year, and now I'm full-time writing. But I was in Wyoming working with some other pastors, and I kept, on the interstate, I kept passing the exit for Horse Creek, and I went out there, and I said, I just need to go out here and see where this is to say I've been to that place. And I met the rancher out there that lives there, and that's, like I said, where the book, the setting is, and it just went from there. And so when I wrote that first book, I was not really thinking about a second book. And I hear that a lot from authors. It's kind of like, you write your first one, and then you're kind of wondering what, and then people ask me, well, when's the next one coming? And I thought, the next one, and I started on that. And then I did a third one. It was actually a prequel, and it went back into the 1790s. So I did a lot of research on them coming across the ocean to America and then settling in Wyoming. And so there were 6 books in that series. So that was the first one. And, that first book still continues to be a favorite. Yeah, it's Jubal Stone, U.S. Marshal. That's my current series. I have another series, 𝗴𝗍𝗄𝗃 lawmen. There's 14 books in that one, but the Jubal series, I am on book number 92 and 93 because I'm usually writing at least 2 books at a time. And so that's been an amazing run. My publicist tells me there's very, very few series that go that long and have those kind of legs. And the neat thing about it is I don't see any let up in that series. And, they're more like episodes. It's not a long novel. It's about 30 to 35,000 words. But I find on my reviews, a lot of the readers like that shorter read. They don't get so bogged down.
Right.
And many of them say, I've sat down and read it. I read the whole thing in one sitting, Absolutely. It's called 𝗴𝗍𝗄𝘁𝗃 lawman, and he's a Kansas lawman. And actually, what's interesting is Jubal Stone, who is that series I just talked about, the main character, he trained this guy to be a range detective in Kansas. And so there is 14 books in that currently, and I'm working on the 15th on that one. Well, I work on both of those series at the same time. The Jubal Stone's the one where I'm most active. But I'm about to start on book 15 of that 𝗴𝗍𝗄𝘃. But I'm also working. I just turned in a book yesterday. I think that's the 92nd one in the Jubal Stone. it'll be coming out probably next week sometime. And that's what I love about my publicist is Dusty Saddle Publishing.
Yeah.
Nick Whale is my publicist, but they have a quick turnaround with my books, and I love that. So, you know, we move pretty quick. Well, that's interesting because I have been talking to my publicist quite a bit about that because I'm a very goal-oriented person. And, you know, if you would have told me 5 years ago I'd have been where I am in my writing, I would have been surprised. And I'm having, you know, literally the time of my life. My writing schedule, I write from 6 to 12 hours a day. Mm-hmm. And I am constantly working on multiple projects and also in constant communication with my publicist. So, you know, we're setting up some targets out there. Okay. All of these Jubal Stones will soon be in audio platform.
Okay.
That is a great thing for, you know, there's two kinds of readers that are going to get that. First of all, a lot of the book signings I've done, older people say, you know, I don't read anymore. My eyes are bad. Do you have that in audio? Yeah. So that's going to meet that need. And then the second one is, as you know, a lot of people read books today by listening to them.
Yeah.
Pop them in the, you know, in their car going down the road. So I'm really excited about that. But one of the goals is having every Jubal Stone book in audio.
Okay.
Of course, they're, you know, digital download, paperback. We're also talking about some Netflix opportunities.
Okay.
We hope that will materialize. You know, I would say about these books, they're much like Gunsmoke episodes, if you would. And I think that's what people, one of the reasons they like them is you read it and you're ready for the next episode.
Right.
And that's kind of the way I write them. And I get a lot of feedback from readers that give me direction. You know, they may say, man, I'd love to hear more about this character or this character. And it just kind of, you know, that idea is in my mind. So maybe that'll come to fruition. And a few books later, I'll kind of expand that character a little bit and that kind of thing. So, you know, Joey, for me, probably kind of like you in your business is you want to reach your potential. Mm-hmm. You know, me, I want to grow my reader base. Mm-hmm. I would, you know, I want to be a top 100 Western author, and, you know, just go as far as I can with it, because I have such a passion to write. It's almost an addiction now, I would say. I think if I didn't write, I think I'd just implode, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm just constantly thinking of ideas and books. I mean, I literally write them in my sleep, I think, as I'm laying on my pillow. I'm thinking I'm having a shootout of some kind, or thinking of a different character and starting new series. That's certainly in the future. Another thing I would say, I anticipate more co-writes, and that is sort of a new phenomenon in the Western genre that we started about 2 years ago. My publicist and I, we were talking. And he was talking about, you know, joining efforts with another writer or two. And I said, I'm open to that. Mm-hmm. And I really didn't have a clue how that would go. But it's been an amazing run with co-writes because, and I write with some of the best, you know, and they're serious writers. And so you're pulling from their leadership, but you're also learning from them, writing styles. You feed off of one another. The books you write when you do a collaboration, they go a lot faster.
Yeah.
Than if it's just on you.
Okay.
So that's been cool. Well, you know, that's an easy answer for me, and I've gotten some questions similar to that in recent interviews. Like, you know, would you consider, you know, like with the Jubal Stone, would you do a spinoff of his grandchildren in the 1920s or something like that, or whatever? And you know, I try to track my readers, but I also am going to be true to myself.
Right.
And for me as a Western writer, if you're talking about, and I'm not sure if I totally understand your question, a superhero. I mean, I guess in a way, Jubal would fit a little bit of that because he kind of represents those strong qualities of being firm all the time, bringing justice to the frontier. So there's some of those qualities, but as far as like, including, some of this kind of Walking Dead kind of stuff, I would say, or just kind of crazy stuff. I don't see that in my Westerns, but the superhero thing, the idea that there's got to be a champion.
Yeah.
There's got to be a champion in the story. And the Jubal Stone, he is definitely the champion of justice. There's got to be some characteristics in my mind that make your main character stand out. And that would be some of them. I mean, Jubal is proficient with pistol, rifle, with his fist, that kind of thing. I mean, and he rose in the lawman ranks at a very young age that, made him kind of an anomaly. And so I think there's got to be some uniqueness to those characters. So definitely there is some of that in my books and in my writings. And I would almost call them champions. The characters you look to that are going to win the day. But I'd also say about my publicist, what you're talking about, and these ideas and picking brains and all, we do a lot of that, Joey. Yeah. Like, we're not afraid to ask the questions. I can tell you, Nick Wales not afraid to thinking outside the box, and that's one of the reasons I write with my publisher, and I'm with them. Is many times he and I will be on the phone or back and forth on a chat, and I'll have an idea. He'll have an idea. When we get finished, it's a little bit of what he said, a little bit of what I said, and we've got a product on the way. I mean, we've got a project that we're going to go to work on, and I love that. I love all that newness and not getting bogged down and not being stale. You got to keep it fresh. Like I said earlier, I always want to be true to myself, and I write in this genre because I love that lifestyle. I love Western. I love everything that's of the West. And I think there's still a big segment of people who do, all over the world, by the way, not just America, but we got German readers and UK and all over the place. So I want to be true to my readers. Right. I don't want to just reach out there and grab something and go with it, because like you said, you can lose your readers if you're not true. Like I call it the meat and potatoes of Western.
Right. Yeah.
You've got to have a protagonist and an antagonist and a good storyline. And that's another thing with the 92 books in the Jubal series. None of them are just alike. Every story is different.
Right.
And I take great pains to make it that way. If it's not going to be different, it probably doesn't need to be written. Right. It's not going to be different from the last one or one before. People look at it and say, I think I've read this story before. It's just different characters. Yeah. I'm like, I failed if that's the case. I want readers waiting for that next one. And that's another cool thing, Joey, about we do a lot of pre-orders on my book. And that has amazed me. One of them, I was sharing this on a podcast the other day, and I don't say it proudly. I say it, I was amazed, and I'm still amazed at the power of the pre-orders. And it doesn't work for everybody. But it has for me. And my publicist told me one day about, actually, it was one of the 𝗵𝗂𝘀𝗁𝗏 books. He says there's 4,500 pre-orders on that right now.
Wow.
And I'm
That's
like,
great. Yeah.
I'm like, say that again?
Yeah.
Did you say 450 or 4,500? He said 4,500. That blew me away. And so a lot of times I've got 3 and 4 pre-orders up, and I get to them pretty quick, though. I mean, I've got them written on my marker board here, and I just keep my projects in front of me, what I need to be working on. So yeah, it's a pretty cool thing. Yeah. Well, Amazon, all I'm on Amazon, and I think just about every Jubal Stone has been a top 10. Several of them have been number ones. So you just type in Casey Nash, Amazon, and it'll pop up. And then, of course, I have Facebook. I have a Casey Nash page that they can look at. And really, it's all over the internet. If you type in Casey Nash, Jubal Stone, 𝗵𝗂𝘀𝘁𝗹𝗲, all those books come up. And even some of the sites I've noticed, I was looking the other day at one, and it actually listed every book from both series, and that was pretty good. So there's a couple of sites you can go on, and you'll see every book that's listed with the titles. I do a good bit of speaking. I speak at rodeos and cowboy church and all that. So if any of the listeners interested in me coming and speaking, reach out to me on that. I just love to talk about my books. They're clean books. As I said, 37 years in ministry. When I started writing, my commitment was I'll not put a bunch of trash in my book. Well, what I'm saying is I've had 37 years of pastoral ministry. I just retired this past December, and I've gone full-time writing now. And so much of my experience as a minister spills over into my books.
Okay.
And as we were talking about earlier, every person needs to have kind of some lines in the sand, some boundaries in their own minds and hearts. And for me, I just made a commitment when I started writing these novels that I was not going to include a bunch of profanity and sexual scenes and taking God's name in vain. And a lot of my Amazon reviews, people appreciate that.
Okay.
Over. So I want to be, true there, but families can read these books. Now there's a good bit of violence because it's frontier stuff,